Well, they desperately needed that win yesterday, don't you think?
Yeah, I was walking from press box to clubhouse. I was kind of thinking to myself, it's hard to understate how important that Trey Turner home run was. It's just that's not good. So that was a massive hit and kind of turned the tide in the early season here in a way that I didn't really know they would have needed 4 or 5 days ago.
Jesse, were you shocked it made it over the fence because that wind was howling? It was tough for balls to get up all day, and he just barely snuck it over.
Yeah, he did it twice too, right?
Yeah.
Like I guess line drives are a little easier to get through the wind there, but
right.
I think the higher one in the third inning is maybe more impressive. But I could barely see it. The shadows were crazy yesterday by the end of the game, and he hit it, and I heard a roar, and maybe kind of before you knew it, it was out because that thing was kind of a laser. But yeah, it was surprising because he really just snuck it over there.
Did you get a sense from the guys going into the game that they felt like it was kind of, I mean, it's so dumb to say it 3 games into a 162-game season, but I know what we all mean here. There was sort of a must-win feeling about that game, especially the way it played out. Did the guys feel that going? Did you sense that before the game?
I did, and it's funny. I think it's going to even out here, but with the division opponents coming up, starting out 4 in a row, and sort of the way the first 2 games started, there was like a lot of there was like a heavy tension yesterday at Nationals Park. Like it wasn't like I don't want to say like a playoff feel, but it felt like there was that kind of weight on every single pitch in a way that shouldn't really happen in March. But
Right.
because I don't think the first 2 games really could have gone worse in a lot of ways because the Nationals simply just were bad at all the things they promised to be good at, and it just was a really bad start to the year in that way. So I think they did feel that way because they had a lot to prove coming off those 2 games that we're not this team. Because if you lose those games like 4-3 or whatever it is, and you play well and you hit well and you pitch well and whatever, that's fine. But they were a lot of really bad signs that they had said they would have cleaned up from last season to this one, and they didn't. So I did feel that game carried that meaning for them in a way, like you mentioned, probably shouldn't be the case, but they kind of sunk themselves into that hole right away.
On the bright side, they've moved the pitcher into the 8-hole, and Robles is hitting 9, so they essentially have 3 consecutive leadoff hitters, and Robles is showing his pop, hitting 455 in 3 games. Eaton's hitting the ball well. Turner obviously is hitting the ball well. So, those 3 guys yesterday had, 7 hits. They were 7 for 14 with 5 RBIs. So they've got a little bit more balance there, certainly towards the bottom of the lineup. And guys like Dozier even haven't got a hit yet. So it's coming. And, that's one of the positives of this team. It's got a different look. You don't have the big bopper, but you've got a lot of guys that can get on base.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a potent 1-2-3 punch there, like you mentioned. If you can flip the lineup with Robles, Eaton, and Trey Turner going into Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto, I mean that's pretty dangerous. And we've seen right away the early returns of having Robles in that 9 spot. The 6, 7, 8 was pretty terrible for the Nationals all series. I mean, it's cool that Robles gets the leadoff innings, but it's also because that group isn't producing. So there's a flip side to that. But I do think that strategic move has shown that Martinez is willing to evolve in ways. He wants to keep sort of a regular lineup this season, so I think it's a look we'll see a lot. And Victor Robles has responded, and while there have been some growing pains with him, he's also really immediately showing all that he can provide for this team, while also showing a bit of what he can also detract.
Joined by Jesse Dougherty, beat reporter for the Washington Nationals for the Washington Post. So let's talk about the bullpen. Last year, Jason dubbed it the poopy pen, and it's just not – it's definitely – look, it's 3 games. It's a little troubling that they've struggled out of the gates.
Yeah, and I would say it's not only a 3-game sample size just because some of these issues were showing up in West Palm Beach, and I know spring training results are not something you should really tag a team with, but Kyle Barraclough's command wasn't great in Florida, and Trevor Rosenthal's command wasn't great in Florida, and Sean Doolittle, once he got over 20 pitches down in Florida, started to wane too and lose his command. So a lot of these things that we're seeing now have sort of been an issue over the last few weeks. They're not just, popped into the season and these guys aren't pitching well. I mean, we saw this as a run-up into the year, that the bullpen depth and the options after Doolittle with Rosenthal, Barraclough, Wander Suero, Mac Race, these guys weren't clicking in a way the Nationals would like them to. But, of course, there is time to clean it up. Tony Sipp also got taxed for a bit yesterday, but he looked sharp the day before. So, I mean, I think it is the question mark with this team. I thought it was on Thursday going into opening day. I think it is even more so now. Trevor Rosenthal is really your key there. If he doesn't clean this up and he's really lost his command and his stuff post Tommy John, you're counting on him to be your key eighth inning guy and kind of the key cog of this bullpen and bridge to closer Sean Doolittle. So the Rosenthal stuff is the most troubling to me, and with the Nationals, I don't want to say have to cross their fingers about, but have to really hope cleans itself up.
What is the traditional sort of thinking about guys coming back post Tommy John? We always know they sort of they come back, pretty darn strong. But is control typically something that they struggle with initially?
It's control and breaking pitches. Yeah, I'd say those are the last things to come. Your control comes with everything is a little slow, and then also the feel for your breaking pitches. So, I mean, I don't think it's surprising that he's pumping 97, 98 on the radar gun. But, when we saw that in spring training, everyone got a bit excited, but I think that was a bit premature because that's not what he's looking for. He's not worried about how fast he can throw. And if he throws 96, 97, he's fine because the way his delivery is and his ball jumps on top of you no matter what. But he has to get a feel for his slider and his he has to be missing either on the corners or off the plate. And right now he's missing either on the corners or middle in, and it's just not good enough right now.
And it's funny. Look, we were sitting in the outfield, so I don't have a great view of it, but they'll show the speed of every pitch, and on Saturday he pumped one 100 miles an hour. And then the next pitch, he gave up a huge hit on something that was 83 miles an hour, where there was a slider, cutter, I don't know what it was, but you were talking about the breaking pitches, and that's where he got tagged.
Yeah, and that was really surprising, too, because just from an approach perspective, and I know you have sequences with guys before you go in, but J.D. Davis, that's the at-bat you're talking about, was nowhere close to his fastball. I mean, he looked like he looked silly on it, and then to come in with him in 83 and sort of bail him out with a pitch that maybe isn't up to top shape, I thought was maybe not the best move there. So I think he has a lot to figure out, and he will have to change a bit as a pitcher if his breaking stuff is slow to come back, and that makes him more predictable and allows hitters to sit on stuff a little bit easier, and it's just not a good trickle effect. So, like I said, there's not great signs there, but of course a lot of time to clean it up.
Jason mentioned with the bullpen struggles, what are the options potentially are out there for them if they wanted to make some early moves? Does this intensify? Does Jason throw out there like a Kimbrel conversation, or where do you think they stand with some of this stuff?
I don't think it does yet. I think the first thing it does is maybe have a few of their options. I mean, you have Wander Suero and Kyle Barraclough have minor league options. I'm not saying those guys are being sent down, but you do have an opportunity if they're not pitching well to look into your organization and say, is there any new look here we can give? Is there something we don't have? Like the first thing that comes to mind for me is a guy like Austin Williams, who retired 22 of the 24 hitters he faced in the spring and has great swing and miss stuff. And I look at the bullpen right now, and if you have a first and third jam in the seventh, I don't know who the guy is who comes in and you can say they're not going to touch his stuff. They might walk, but they're not going to touch what he's throwing. Austin Williams throws mid-90s with a really the biting curveball that disappears into the dirt, and he's a little wild, but he could provide with you that swing and miss reliever that a lot of teams need to get through certain jams. I'm not sure this group has that. So maybe the first step for them, when they consider sort of shifting things around, is to say, what do we have internally that we could maybe give a different look and get a guy and maybe snap a guy into it by saying, go down to the minors and figure this out. And next time you come back, start getting outs. I mean, there's a lot of ways they can do this without hitting the panic button and shelling out for Kerry Kimbrel. That said, is a midseason trade on the horizon for a Kelvin Herrera type? I mean, you could probably already project that that's going to be something that's being considered if this team thinks they're in contention and want to take the next step, just because any team can use a reliever at midseason. But I don't think it's right now.